We're joined now on the Bill O'Reilly story by Gabriel Sherman, the national affairs editor at New York Magazine and an MSNBC contributor. He's the author of The Loudest Voice in the Room, How the Brilliant, Bombastic Roger Ailes Built Fox News and Divided a Country. Gabe, so what did Bill O'Reilly say on his show about this tonight?
It was crickets. He did not want to address this.
Not a word.
No, which is surprising to me, because in the past, you mentioned the Andrea Mackers case. The first night that scandal broke, he addressed it head on and really leaned into it until he was called off by Roger Ailes and told not to talk about it. His silence tonight, to me, is striking, that he does not want to inflame and accelerate this scandal.
And that's hard for him when he sees this big picture of himself on the front page of the New York Times. He hates them. He's filled with hatred about this. It was an exhaustive report that detailed every single thing that's out there and discovered more.
Yes.
And so O'Reilly's just going to swallow it. He's going to lose the Mercedes-Benz advertising, say nothing, in the hopes that he doesn't lose another advertiser.
Well, yeah, clearly this is a case where he knows that perhaps, we don't know yet, but his job could be on the line. So he does not want to do a misstep that could be seen as the first step in him losing his job. Yeah, and if he does say anything, he creates a piece of video that everyone's going to start using everywhere. Exactly.
The latest filing today, what's new about that?
This is the case, Julie Rodzinski of Fox News. She's a current contributor. A couple things new. A, Fox's current leadership team, the post-Roger Ailes leadership team, is implicated in this lawsuit, that they were enabling this culture of sexual harassment. That's new. What else is new is that Julie Rodzinski is a Fox News contributor. Now, not to get in the weeds, but as a legal matter, she's not bound by arbitration rules, meaning this could go to trial. Roger Ailes, Bill Shine, all of the Fox News personalities could be deposed, and if this goes to trial, be in open court. So this could all be aired in public, which has to be Fox News' worst nightmare.
And how does all this interact with the federal criminal investigation into Fox's covering up these payments, hiding them from their shareholders?
It provides more ammunition. It gives prosecutors and FBI agents more people to subpoena. So again, this is the kind of story that starts to snowball. And if you're Rupert Murdoch, who controls Fox News, you have to say, what is my line? Where do I want to try to draw a line and stop this scandal?
And one of those lines might be Bill O'Reilly's last day of work.
It could be.
Gabe Sherman, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Here is Bill O'Reilly talking about the sexual harassment suit former Fox News host Gretchen Carlson filed last year, which Fox News settled for millions of dollars. She filed that suit last year against former Fox News CEO Roger Ailes.
In this country, every famous, powerful, or wealthy person is a target. I'm a target. Anytime somebody could come out and sue us, attack us, go to the press, or anything like that. I stand behind Roger 100%.
Joining us now, Nancy Giles, contributor to CBS News Sunday Morning and the host of the Giles Files podcast. Also with us, Erin Gloria Ryan, senior editor for the Daily Beast. Nancy, the everybody happens to everybody defense. I have a two-word problem for Bill O'Reilly in that defense. Those two words are Sean Hannity. Never been accused of anything. Been at Fox News as long. He's almost as rich as Bill O'Reilly. He is absolutely as prominent in it happens to everybody.
Nah.
Doesn't happen to Sean Hannity.
No, and it doesn't happen 5 times and it's always a lie. It just can't. Not with the kind of specificity of detail that each lawsuit has.
And we're way
out.
Over 5 now.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. And then I'm not even talking about Ailes. Yeah. Now are we up to 7? I think it's and can I just say that if I ruled the world, when things like this happen, not only would the aggressors have to pay big fines, big penalties, but they'd also have to admit their guilt, because this is the part that really kills me. As a woman being attacked in this way, your only option to get attention or to get notice is to go after them financially. And so O'Reilly and Fox have fallen back and helped support these kind of horrible actions without admitting guilt.
Absolutely.
It just drives me
Nancy,
nuts.
there was a survey from 2 years ago, I think Cosmopolitan conducted, found that 71% of women who experience workplace harassment do not report it. I wonder why.
Well,
right. And so it's sort of like when there's smoke, there's fire. fire. When there's flames shooting out of the windows, there is definitely fire.
And when you feel like human resources is also in the pocket of the corporation.
Which, for some reason, at Fox News, people get that feeling.
Isn't that odd?
I think that, you know, a company is always going to be a little bit in the image and likeness of who's ever in charge of it. And, you know, look at who's in charge of Fox News.
Birds of a feather.
And it also is funny to me looking back, you know, the 20/20 benefit of hindsight, and seeing that, you know, they kind of made nothing out of the Trump harassment claim.
Isn't that
and
strange?
It sort of seems like this is all maybe part of a pattern.
Yeah.
This all seems to fit into something that maybe is cultural.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe it's a symptom of the same disease.
But again, I wonder, like, going along with what you just said, Aaron, like, why does Fox have any women fans? That's just like, why did any woman vote for Trump just on the basis of the sexual harassment, not only accusations, but we heard it all on tape. Just like we heard some of the strange things Bill O'Reilly did when he was mastering his domain while talking to an employee on the other end, a female employee. It's horrible.
For Fox News and O'Reilly, the big what's next is, who's the next advertiser? They lost Mercedes-Benz tonight. That is a big one.
Yep.
And the question is, are the rest of the advertisers going to hang in there for that hour?
Right. I think that numbers don't matter to Fox unless there's a dollar sign in front of it.
So a big advertiser that maybe appeals to women, which are cars, financial interests, all kinds of things. Everything. Anyone could be next, I would
half the
think.
population. Women are actually pretty
more
common.
than half, and more than half.
Common.
Yeah.
The O'Reilly strategy of absolute silence isn't going to work?
That I find actually bizarre.
Did it work for Bill Cosby?
Oh.
No, it sure didn't. I think that once it's out, like, we're in a post-Cosby era now. And so once things like this are out, it doesn't really matter if you talk, your silence speaks volumes.
Well, and there are some similarities in attacking the accuser. I mean, O'Reilly had Bo Dietl, among other people, as privately investigating, I think Wendy Macris, was that the first girl?
Yes.
And trying to dig up dirt on her. By the way, I wouldn't vote for Bo Dietl for mayor of New York, but in any case, yeah, that same thing happens when guys are caught in a corner.
Nancy Giles gets tonight's last word, and you do rule the world here. Okay, let's just get that straight.
Lawrence.
Aaron, Gloria, Ryan, thank you for joining us too. MSNBC's live coverage continues into the 11th hour now with Brian Williams. That's next. The newest link being reported tonight by the Washington Post between the Trump transition team and Moscow is Eric Prince, the founder of a company called BLACKWATER, which no longer does business under that name after security guards working for BLACKWATER in Iraq killed 14 people in Baghdad in a wild shooting spree. They injured 17 others. 4 BLACKWATER employees were convicted in U.S. courts. One was sentenced to life in prison, the other 3 sentenced to 30-year terms. Eric Prince is a former Navy SEAL who personally profited hugely from the Iraq War through his company BLACKWATER, which he has since left and has now been renamed Academy. The Washington Post is reporting that the United Arab Emirates arranged a secret meeting in January between Eric Prince and a Russian close to President Vladimir Putin as part of an apparent effort to establish a back-channel line of communication between Moscow and President-elect Donald Trump. NBC News has confirmed that Eric Prince represented Donald Trump at a secret overseas meeting. Eric Prince, who was a major contributor to Donald Trump's campaign, is the brother of the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. And tonight, BuzzFeed News is reporting that another Trump associate, former campaign advisor Carter Page, met with and passed documents to a Russian intelligence operative in New York City in 2013. And an aide to the Senate Intelligence Committee tells NBC News that staff-level interviews have started regarding that committee's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election. And the House Intelligence Committee met behind closed doors for the first time today since the ranking member of that committee, Representative Adam Schiff, called for Chairman Devin Nunes to recuse himself from their Russian investigation. Congressman Schiff told NBC News tonight that he and Chairman Nunes are coming to an agreement on an initial witness list to interview. That witness list may be released as early as tomorrow. Today, the White House tried to involve former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice in the controversy created by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes when he publicly made a trip to the White House, claiming he was briefing the president on sensitive intelligence material that he had obtained from the White House. The Nunes escapade has now been unmasked as a complete charade in which the White House used Devin Nunes as a third party to make public information that the White House already possessed and wanted to make public without their fingerprints on it. Today, the Trump White House claimed that during the transition before the Trump inauguration, Susan Rice saw the intelligence reports that Devin Nunes first saw at the White House and then the next day brought back to the White House, pretending publicly that he was telling the White House something that the president did not know. The Trump White House is now saying that Susan Rice requested the identities of U.S. persons in those raw intelligence reports on dozens of occasions. Fox News and Bloomberg columnist Eli Lake reported that story today without naming their sources. But let me just read you the opening line of Eli Lake's story and just take your own wild guess about sources. White House lawyers last month learned that the former National Security Advisor Susan Rice requested the identities of U.S. persons in raw intelligence reports on dozens of occasions that connect to the Donald Trump transition and campaign, according to U.S. officials familiar with the matter. Let me remind you that those first two words were White House lawyers. That's who the article is telling you what they discovered. The article then specifies that Ezra Cohen Watnick, the senior director of intelligence at the White House, was the person who discovered this information. Ezra Cohen Watnick was an active participant in the Devin Nunes charade about going to the White House, and he was exposed as an active participant last week. After the White House got their story out about Susan Rice through Fox News and Bloomberg, Donald Trump tweeted this: "Such amazing reporting on unmasking and the crooked scheme against us by Fox and Friends. Spied on before nomination. The real story." Joining us now, David Corn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones and an MSNBC political analyst. Also with us, Ned Price, former senior director and spokesperson for the National Security Council. He resigned from the CIA when President Trump took office. Ned Price, I just want to go to you for your general sorting out of everything that we've developed in this story today.
Well, that's a very tough task, Lawrence, but let me first take this unmasking business. And I think what the White House and its allies are telling us today is that we should not be focused on the underlying substance of this administration's yet unexplained and multi-pronged ties with the Russian government. We should be focused on unmasking. And if you unpack that statement, what they are saying is, let's not focus on the fact that lots of our associates, lots of Trump campaign types and others were apparently caught up in routine, lawful, and authorized U.S. surveillance. Let's not focus on all the smoke that is in this routine surveillance. Let's instead focus on who called 911 to report this fire. It's absolutely astounding that they want us not to focus on these two bombshell reports, but instead to look at routine matters that any intelligence analyst or policymaker carries out on a nearly daily basis.
David Corn, Sean Spicer is saying that they were not aware of any meetings that Eric Prince had, and that Eric Prince had no role in the transition.
Well, you know, I'm still waiting for the 3 to 5 million illegal voters plus the 1.5 million people who made it to the inauguration that day, apparently wearing their invisible cloaks. I mean, you can't take, I believe Sean Spicer was unaware. I mean, that's probably true. But the question is whether Eric Prince was creating any back channel with the knowledge of Steve Bannon, maybe. I'm just guessing, just supposing. Jared Kushner, maybe doing it on his own. Did he tell his sister? Now, we're getting into kind of Iran-Contra-like territory with secret meetings now in the Seychelles, but any investigation that would look into this would have to talk to the cabinet member, the Secretary of Education appointed by Donald Trump, and say, at the very least, did you know your brother was going to the Seychelles? Did you have any understanding that he was doing this? He was seen in the transition office, and so the fact that he didn't have a job in the transition doesn't mean anything. It's all highly suspicious, and all I can say is that, you know, God knows what's going on in the House Intelligence Committee, but the Senate Intelligence Committee better hire more staff. This is just widening. They need more manpower and women power to deal with this.
I just want to go to highlighting one of the problems that Donald Trump and Devin Nunes both have, and those are problems named Lindsey Graham and John McCain. Let's listen to what they had to say about this.
Nunes, the House, they're off in a ditch. I don't know who invited him to look at the evidence in the White House. All I can say is, why do you show it to the chairman of the Intel Committee if you got it yourself? So that never made sense to me.
If we're really going to get to the bottom of these things, it's got to be done in a bipartisan fashion. And as far as I could tell, Congressman Nunes killed that.
And Ned Price, if Nunes had any kind of support from people like McCain, Lindsey Graham, this would be in another place. But to lose them instantly, as he did with that trip to the White House, is part of the hole that apparently he's just not being able to dig out of.
Well, that's exactly right. Look, by taking part in this amateur political theater, by being the recipient of laundered intelligence that the White House provided to him, after which he then took part in this charade where he held 2 press conferences and briefed President Trump in between, he has removed any pretense that he is a neutral arbiter in this affair. He has clearly shown his colors that, frankly, should have been apparent when he was a member of the Trump transition team. But he has again reminded us that he is unfit to lead this House inquiry. And that's why not only Senators McCain and Graham, but also the ranking member, Adam Schiff, has called for him to recuse himself from this matter.
Let's listen to what Susan Rice said about this on March 22nd.
I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today. I mean, let's back up and recall where we have been. The President of the United States accused his predecessor, President Obama, of wiretapping Trump Tower during the campaign. Nothing of the sort occurred. So today, I really don't know to what Chairman Nunes was referring.
And David Corn, what those reports that Devin Nunes has been talking about, he has indicated that those were intelligence reports during the transition, when there's nothing that anyone could do in the Obama administration to stop the inauguration of President Trump. This is not a question of what were they looking at during the campaign. And so there is that distinction to be made here.
Ned can probably explain this better than I can, but unmasking within intelligence reports based on intercepts is a pretty common thing. There are reasons in which you can legitimately do this. And and I don't know, I've never been a national security advisor. I don't know if doing it dozens of times is suspicious or not. They make it sound suspicious at Fox, but this is a common thing. These are, and we don't know whether these are people who were picked up or whether they were just being discussed between 2 subjects who are being surveilled. And so, Donald Trump, as well as Nunes and everybody else, trying to turn this into the scandal is really quite outrageous. And I just go back, I mentioned Iran-Contra a few moments ago. In Iran-Contra, there were a lot of political fights, there were a lot of partisan issues. You were around back then, Lawrence. But ultimately, I did think that the leadership, Republican and Democrat on both sides of the hill, wanted to get to the bottom. They saw it was a serious issue, and they wanted to honestly investigate, even though some were trying to be more protective than others. That's just not the case now with Republicans on Capitol Hill, except for McCain and Graham.
Ned, quickly before we go, just assume for the moment that report about Susan Rice is accurate, that she was asking for unmaskings on some of these things. What would that mean to you?
Well, Lawrence, she was the national security advisor and had an intelligence briefing every day during which she reviewed dozens of reports. Look, speaking from my personal experience as a former CIA analyst, I would have been derelict in my job had I read a report summarizing the conversation of 2 terrorists based overseas. And these 2 individuals say, tomorrow we are going to carry out an attack on, parentheses, U.S. person 1. if I didn't go to the powers that be at the National Security Agency or the originator of that report and request that the identity of that individual be unmasked so that prudent measures could be taken to stop that attack and protect that individual, I would have been derelict. And so there are certainly legitimate reasons and very routine reasons for an analyst or for a policymaker to request unmasking. Unmasking is not akin to leaking, and in fact, it is a routine process.
Ned Price and David Corn, thank you both for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Coming up, the president made a huge mistake, unbelievable, bad rookie mistake. And rookie Speaker Paul Ryan made the same mistake with him after their health care bill collapsed in the House of Representatives. And now they're trying to undo that mistake. And later, Bill O'Reilly and Fox News, big advertiser, pulling out of Bill O'Reilly's show on Fox News after yesterday's expose in the New York Times of the $13 million that has been paid in sexual harassment claims against Bill O'Reilly.